How would you feel if some crackhead trashed your HMO? Hey, my name's Alasdair Cunningham, welcome to this week's show. This week is all about the realities of property investing and the downside, what really happens when things go wrong. This week I'm going to be chatting with John Raybould. John is a 22-year-old, just qualified student. He is a very, very intelligent young man, very switched on. I tell you, a lot of 22-year-olds would die to be in his shoes. Young 22-year-old, 7 HMOs under his belt, but it's not all been plain sailing. It really, really hasn't. Like, the world of business is risky, and John knows too well them risks. So before we crack on with today's show, make sure you are subscribed if you want the realities of business and property investing. Also, tap that notification bell just there. Make sure you turn them on. That way, when we upload, you will be notified instantly, and that way you never, ever, ever, ever miss out. Okay, so this week we're going to be chatting with John Raybould. It's not all been plain sailing. Like, property's risky. Yeah, it has its good days, but there's also times when people trash your house, because sometimes you have the wrong tenant in there. Sometimes the tenants are just crackheads. Sometimes the tenants are just dickheads, and they trash the property because they've got no respect for people or for people's property. That's just what happens, okay? Now, you have to look at it as a business and a business cost and a business expense. If you're going to be emotionally involved in your property and the minute somebody trashes it or somebody writes on the wall or breaks something off the wall or whatever, you're going to get all upset and start crying, then this game is not for you. Like, you need a backbone in this game and you need thick skin. Sometimes tenants cause problems. Not all the time, just sometimes. Let's crack on with today's show. Let's meet John. Tell me what you think afterwards and we'll come back in a minute. Okay, so I am joined today on the channel by Mr. John Raybould, a wonderful guy that I've known for nearly 3 years, and yeah, he's an amazing success student that's been through the academy, done really, really amazing things, and yeah, John, welcome.
Hi Alasdair, thanks for having me, mate.
That's all right, my friend. So, John, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about where you've come from and where you're at the minute. What have you done up until today? What have you done up until today? Come on, tell us.
So, basically, born and raised in Sheffield and attended Sheffield University, studying history and politics. Whilst I was doing my degree at Sheffield University, history and politics, I sort of discovered property.
Right.
Started reading property, went on courses. Since then, I started about 2 years ago in January 2018. Since then, I've acquired 8 properties, which I currently have, and 6 of those being HMO properties.
Okay.
So now, once one of these HMO properties is completed in the conversion, we will have 31 tenants in the HMOs and 2 single-let properties.
So just to satisfy the pedantic people out there, when you say acquire, do you mean own or do you mean rent to rent?
So, me and my father work together in a limited company. We own these properties. And
you own them, you've bought them, mortgaged, and they're in your name?
Yes, yeah, yes.
Yeah, amazing, yeah, that's good. I knew that, but I know I know what some of the pedantic people out there, they'll be like, oh, acquire, what, they're just rent to rent? Come on, like, you get it everywhere. Anyway, so, you've got 8 properties, 31 tenants. I know you've had your ups and downs, I know you have, and I know you've made mistakes along the way, and you've had highs and lows. And I know at some points you've been looking to give up. And I remember me and you had a conversation where you were like, I've had enough of this property game. I'm just going to give up, like jack it in for a little while and just let the ones that you got just leave, let them tick along, and then not buy any more. But obviously you've got over that because you bought some more. Now, You're quite, obviously you're a student, you've come from university, so you're very well educated, but you've got quite a backbone on you, and you've got quite a thick skin, from what I recall, because yes. What was it like during your uni days when you were getting involved in property and you got all these, basically snowflakes that really didn't like you because you were doing something with your life? Tell us what that was like.
So, trying to balance my studies and trying to get into property was quite difficult. It's quite difficult anyway, trying to balance basically 2 lives. But I would say a lot of university students, if they found out about what I was doing, some of them didn't, but I did get into some of the newspapers. They were far from supportive with obviously me getting into property. Yeah. A lot of them were very left wing. didn't agree with it. And so, I mean, me myself studying a politics degree, I was kind of dealing with the radicals in my sort of groups.
Right, okay.
So they all had strong opinions about it. So I wasn't really, with some of the students anyway, I wasn't really in a supportive environment. Some of the lecturers were fine and, sort of understood and were interested. But some of the...
So, John, I remember you were telling me when we were in the, I think it was the eviction, you were telling me a story of when you were in a debate with a load of your peers, and they were absolutely horrified that you're making profit and that you've got property. Like, come on, tell me about that. Do you remember the story I'm on about?
Yeah, completely. I mean, basically, a lot of the students are left-wing. Didn't really sort of agree with what I was doing. And on one sort of occasion, I was sort of in a debate in a seminar where somebody was saying they don't agree with owning things, they don't agree with private property, making profit. And when he said he didn't agree with making profit, I just stood up, I asked him, so do you not agree with making money at all? And he basically just went, no, I completely disagree with the idea. So I said, well, stay poor then. What are you annoying me for with this?
Yeah. That's like the best comeback ever, because like do you know what, I can't stand these snowflakes. I have got no time for snowflakes. All this like the government owe you a living, all that sort of bullshit. It's bollocks. Like all this, it's rubbish. Right? You go out, you create your own wealth, create your own income. Stop relying on people. And that's like the best thing ever. Like it's the biggest mic drop ever. And I agree with you. But that's why you're now sat here with 8 properties. You're providing good homes for people that can't afford to buy the whole house or rent a whole house. So you're providing rooms for people that need affordable accommodation. You're doing a great thing for the economy. You're doing a great thing for the community. And like, what's he doing for the community? He's probably still unemployed. He's probably still going around the world protesting utter rubbish. And that's what he'll be like all his life. So yeah, great job, man. Right, okay, so tell me, listen, you got 31 tenants. What's been going on? Tell me the problems you've been facing, because I know you even wrote a book about it. It's not out yet, but you've wrote a book about the problems of property investing. When's that coming out?
So that book, I'm looking to try and bring it out next week. So
wow, so soon.
Sort of mid-July sort of time for when you sort of air this.
Okay.
Basically, the book is called Property Problems and How to Overcome Them.
Yeah.
A Father's Journey. Looks through sort of property problems I've come through with my various different properties.
Yeah.
Basically, I've encountered everything you can imagine.
Go on, then tell me.
I've not encountered a cannabis farm yet.
Oh, you've not had a cannabis farm yet. Well,
no.
Well, come on, tell me some of the horror stories that you've had. Tell me some of the things that have gone wrong. Like, so, firstly, where are your HMOs?
So HMOs, we've got HMOs in Burnley, Scunthorpe, and Gainsborough, which is sort of just south of Scunthorpe, like a town. Yeah.
Okay, the north, sort of east coast, and then Burnley's obviously west coast. Okay, so what's the have you got one property that's just caused you nothing but hassle since the day you got it?
I've got a couple of them.
You've got a couple of them. Okay, come on. What's gone wrong then? So give me an example of what's gone wrong.
Very, very bad tenants. One area of the problems I've had is very bad tenants. And some of those, obviously, tenants were inherited when we bought the properties. From these tenants, we've had serious drugs issues. We've had one of them being a drug dealer, police smashing their way in to try and get hold of him, drug dealers smashing their way in twice to try and get hold of him. Complete nightmare.
So hang about. Okay, so you bought a property with sitting tenants.
Yes.
And the tenants were basically crackheads.
Yes.
And yeah, well, I'm not PC, so I know you are, but I couldn't care less, right? So they're basically crackheads. That's what they are. And they were using your house as a basically crack den, and all the tenants were doing drugs. You couldn't get them out. You weren't aware of this when you bought the property, so you took the property on. Bad tenants. And the stories you've told me is like rival drug lords breaking into they beat them up and coming with iron bars, and you were telling me a story once of how you arrived there to do a little bit of maintenance, and there was an ambulance out the front and police out the front. What was that all about?
So arrived at the property, sort of came around the back, and the back window, so on the lounge window, was just smashed through.
Right.
And I saw that and I thought, oh dear. So anyway, I opened the back door, went in, said hello. I was greeted by a policeman.
Who are
you?
That's so funny. You went in and said hello. Okay, that's just you all over.
So basically, the police sort of filled me in a bit. My tenant really wasn't talking much about it. But obviously, some people had come round, they'd smashed the back window in, they'd smashed the front door in, and they'd beaten the tenant with a stick.
Wow.
And obviously, tenant really wouldn't talk about it. This was to do with drugs.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's not great. We obviously had another incident of that where these sort of people came back. They caused more damage, and obviously they're trying to get their hands on the tenant. And due to the police obviously being involved in the incident, they kind of sniffed out quite quickly that this was to do with drugs.
Yeah.
So they raided the property. So we had the property turned upside down. All the sofas, when the police are looking for drugs, they're seriously looking for drugs. All the sofas slashed up, everything.
Really?
Yeah, everything slashed up.
What? So you had to refurnish the whole house pretty much?
Yes, yeah.
Like, I know I've seen some of the videos you've sent me from your CCTV of that you've showed me when we've been together, of people like damaging your properties and like just punching holes in walls, kicking doors off, all that sort of stuff. Like, I remember you showed me once a video of somebody they were all in the lounge doing drugs on the table, and they smashed a chair on the floor to get the leg, and then they were up trying to smash the alarm off the ceiling, and it's just horrific.
Smashed the alarm off, smashed the light off, and it was. I think it was just sort of drugs and drink. There was no game to doing this. Obviously, they just didn't have a light for a bit in that lounge, so they couldn't actually use it anymore. So
tell me, like, what were the tenants like when you went round there to see them and to deal with them and to say, look, come on, guys, what are you doing? This is not acceptable. Did you not do that, or how did you deal with that?
Well, before we put the CCTV in, obviously you go round, you hit with a wall of silence, especially with, I've always found, especially with benefit tenants, you won't be able to break that wall of silence of saying who's done this, who's done that. When you put the CCTV in, they can't deny it. So there's no longer a thing of like where they'll say, oh, it's not me, because you can clearly show them saying it's you. Yeah. They just come up with excuses. So, I was drunk, I didn't mean to do it. And it's, you can't not mean to kick a door in. You mean to kick a door in.
Well, it's a choice, isn't it? It's an act. It's an action. It's not. It's not like you fell down the stairs and knocked the bottom door off. It is you purposely pulled your leg up to kick it down. It's a complete and utter.
Disgrace, really. Well,
it's horrific. Like, so let's talk about the money side of things. So obviously the DSS tenants. The money's paid by the government, another well spent government. So the government are paying for these low lives to have housing. The government pay for that. You're getting your money, okay, but obviously the profits from these properties can't be much, because obviously the amount of damage that you're having to rectify.
At some points, I will agree with that. So at some points we've had quite low returns month on month because we've had bad tenants. But once you get rid of those bad tenants, and me and my father decided to go for older DSS tenants, older benefit tenants, who are less likely to party, less likely to cause serious problems, when the properties calm down, you do actually make a good return on it. So one of the good things I'll say is, obviously during the coronavirus crisis, a lot of people been out of work, been furloughed, not been able to pay rent. Yeah, that hasn't been a problem for me.
Well, it's just another day. It's just another day in the house for them, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's paid by the government. So there's been with those properties, there's been no cash flow issues
at all.
Not at all. The money just comes direct.
So tell me, obviously you had quite bad tenants through inheriting them, through buying the property. Now, I know you've evicted a lot of them and a lot of them are gone. Do you still have any current tenants that are causing you issues, or...?
Not serious issues, no. Okay. No, nothing like we've had. So
you seem to have got over the worst of it. It was like, I imagine it was a very steep learning curve. It was a very, very steep learning curve. Would you do anything different?
Right, so obviously you need to select your tenants well. Yeah. Okay? That's the key thing. So when you're selecting your tenants, obviously I would say you need to reference them correctly. Make sure that all sort of previous landlord references are good. You do need, I would always say that you need to take at least 2 weeks deposit from, especially DSS tenants.
Okay, so number one, correct referencing. Number 2, 2 weeks.
You need to take a deposit. With DSS tenants, they're probably not going to be able to do more than 2 weeks. But if they can, take as much as you can and deposit.
The thing is, like, how much is the weekly rent in a DSS property and where these properties are?
£70.
Okay, so £70. So 2 weeks rent is £140. Like, that's not a lot of money to me and you. That's really not. But to perhaps the tenant, it might be a lot. It's probably a lot of money. So, like, if you're saying, look, I'm going to take £140 for you as a deposit because if you damage anything, like, they might desperately need that money back when they move out. So they're more inclined to look after the property because it's not about how much it is to you; it's about how much it is to them.
Yeah, 100%. That can be quite a lot of money to people.
Okay, so number 1, reference, and number 2, deposit.
Number 3, I would always say if the people aren't working, you need a guarantor.
Okay, cool.
So get a guarantor who's working or owns a home, something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely. I would also say, sort of like more an informal point, as a 4th point, talk to the tenants. If you have a potential tenant who's looking to move into the property, talk to the tenants and see if they know this person, if this person's okay. If it's a small town, there's a good chance they will do. Yeah. And obviously the tenants are more likely to be honest at this point, because if this person is a trouble causer, is going to end up getting the doors kicked in, anything like that, they're not going to want to live with him. So they will give you an honest assessment. Yeah. And basically, they will. You can work with them on this. I think sort of dealing with this property and dealing with this market, I've learned many things. It isn't the sort of market I intended to get involved with. Most of my HMOs are for sort of blue collar workers or sort of professionals. Yeah. But obviously, it's a market I have got into with a couple of the HMOs. How did that come about? Because obviously, if you weren't looking to do DSS tenants, how did that come about? The numbers, when I saw the deals, the numbers just stacked. So one of the properties where I inherited the tenants, and I inherited sort of bad tenants, was an auction property. Okay. I saw the number. I worked the numbers out. I viewed the property. I thought to myself, this just stacks here. So I bought the property, and yes, I encountered certain issues with the tenants what were there at the time. But obviously, I got over those. At the end of the day, it's a business. It's a risk you've got to take. And once I've got rid of the tenants within that property who were causing the issues, I've not had any serious problems. Right. I would consider, in hindsight, I would always sort of view potential tenants in situ potentially more as a risk from now on. It's not something, at the time as a sort of fledgling new investor, I hadn't really seen that as such a massive risk take. But now I would always say there is a potential risk of people, of in situ tenants potentially being bad. Obviously, look, business is risky, investment is risky, property is risky. It comes with risk, and if you're not going to treat the business like a business and just run away from these risks, then you're never going to get anywhere. You've tackled these risks and you've tackled these problems head on, and you've had your fair share. I sincerely hope you don't have any more problems, but I've seen a couple of your HMOs. I've certainly the ones in Gainsborough. I come up and viewed them when you were decorating them, and you were getting them refurbed. And they're good size, they're nice, they're good quality. I've seen finished photographs. I know you and your dad are very thorough in what you do. You're very the properties will be immaculate. I know that. It's just a shame the tenants didn't look after them, but now we have 31 good tenants and 2 single lets, which is good. They're all paying their rent. You're making good money. What sort of money are you making per month from all your properties? What sort of income are you getting? So once the last HMO is finished with the refurb, we'll be making profit probably about £5,000 a month. So a profit of 5k a month. What's your turnover? What's your income? Your gross income for all the properties that you have currently with tenants in there? So the gross income, including the ones outside the company, will probably, once this one's finished, we probably will be looking at about 10,500. Yeah, so you're making about 10 grand a month income and profit after all mortgages, costs, expenses, bills, whatever, maintenance, voids, management, about 5k a month profit. 5, 6, well, maybe 5 is a bit too conservative. Maybe let's say 6. Okay. I always like to be on the conservative side of stuff. Yeah, but you and your dad are happy? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, despite all the issues of what me and my father have faced within property, we have always viewed it as risk. It is a business. There's always going to be risks.
Yeah.
And we are certainly glad we've got involved in it. We're certainly glad we've gone down the HMO route. We obviously have discovered that certain markets with HMOs are harder than others.
Yeah, of course.
If we hadn't have actually sort of got a HMO with DSS tenants, we wouldn't know about the market. We wouldn't know the difficulties and the risks, and also the benefits in some senses. Because these properties are a lot cheaper, you can make better returns.
Of course, yeah. I mean, do you know? A lot of people go on about how they only ever tell you the upsides to what they're doing. Like they don't tend to focus on the downsides. But I think sometimes you've got to focus on the problems that happen, and you've got to worry about that because they are problems and they are a reality. Like I've always been a fairly I don't want to say negative, but I've always been quite negative, and I've always seen the pitfalls and whatever could happen as opposed to what could happen. Like it's always been I'd look at something and I'd always be like, well, what if the tenants just trash the place, as opposed to what if all the tenants pay the rent on time every month and you make lots of money. I've always looked at the downside, but that's good. I think that's a good thing because you got to understand the risks, and like, well done, like really, really well done. I'll have to come up and see you guys. Come up to Sheffield, see you guys, say hi and stuff after dinner or whatever. But John, tell us about your book. When's your book out? Where can we get it? What's it about?
The book is called Property Problems and How to Overcome Them, A Father's Journey. You can get this book on Amazon. It's going to be out mid-July.
Cool.
The book basically looks at all the problems and the solutions to these problems that me and my dad found for all the properties and all the investments we've made over the last 2 years.
Sweet.
It's basically just to try and help other investors and grow the sort of knowledge pool with other investors.
Yeah, it's good, man. So people can learn from your experience. So I personally think, like, I don't know how much you're going to charge it for, but it's whatever it is, it's going to be money well spent, because if it's going to save you any of the problems you've had, it will save you far more than it will cost you to buy the book. The book's going to be available on Amazon. When the book comes out, I'll show it on a video and I'll send it out to the database or whatever. So we'll make it available to you guys, and I'm sure it's going to be an amazing read. Listen, John, let's catch up soon. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and we'll chat soon.
100%. Thanks for having me, mate.
No worries. Cheers. See you soon. Wow, as you can see, he's had his ups and downs. Like, that's crazy. Like, some of these tenants, why do the people do that? I don't know how they can live like that. Anyway, I hope you guys found that useful. If you have, drop me a thumbs up, drop me a comment. Also, connect with John. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable, lots of experience in property. He's got 8 properties now, doing really, really well. Give him a bit of love. Also, buy his book. It's going to be a great read. And also follow him on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I'll put his links and his contact information in the description below. Guys, hope you found it useful. Catch you next week.